Good afternoon and welcome. My name is Sandra Glaister. I'm the Manager of Residential Care for Leading Age Services Australia and Queensland. We have an assortment of treats to tantalise your taste buds in this session, Culture Eats Strategy for Lunch. We have three eminent speakers today on our culture and strategy journey. Paul Terrow, our first speaker, is on a mission to energise us, to use our dormant energy as he explains why culture and strategy should indeed be on our lunch menu. Paul is the Principal Consultant with Delium Advisory. The solid experience that Paul has across a number of economic sectors comes from 23 years in IT and 4 years in organisational strategy. He is well educated and consults in the areas of IT strategy, organisational strategy and strategic foresight. Please welcome with me Paul.
Thank you. Hello. Culture and strategy should both be at the lunch table. This afternoon I want to talk on culture and strategy. This afternoon, myself and Carla and Khan, this is more about thinking. This afternoon, the next hour and a half is just about how do we think about. Sometimes we just get so involved, we get so caught up in the day-to-day of what we do that we don't stand back from our businesses. We don't stand back from what we do. Part of thinking about it, thinking about your work, thinking about your organisation, thinking about your career, is reflection. A key thing is reflection. There's three components to reflection. REC. Some of the things I'm going to say are for response. Visceral, there might be an emotional response. It's like, no, that's not quite right. Then the second level is elaboration. It's almost like this compare and contrast. Of, yes, that I understand that, but it doesn't quite match up with this other experience, other learning. And then there's a third level of contemplation, C for contemplation. So what I wanted to discuss are these several things. I just want to give you a bit of an introduction to myself, some definitions, some theories, look at some case studies which I've personally been involved with, some lessons learned, applications and next steps for yourself. Culture Eats Strategy for Lunch has been attributed to Peter Drucker, management consultant, famous management consultant. He said culture eats strategy for lunch. What he said was that it doesn't matter what your strategies are, it doesn't matter what your direction is, culture will always win. Over the next few moments, I hope to show you that they can both be at the lunch table. Well, who is this bloke standing before you talking about culture and strategy? Born and bred here in Adelaide. I moved to Alice Springs in '83 and down to Melbourne in '99. And as what happens, life goes on. Got married and 3 kids and 3 cats and 2 cars and house and all that sort of stuff. But then in the context of life, here I am working for different organisations. Manufacturing, mining, education, health. And for 10 years, up until last December, I was working for the Salvation Army as a network manager, had responsibilities over Victoria, Tasmania, South Australia, Northern Territory and WA. And I was the bloke who was there doing the IT, making sure the 14 aged care centres moved across to Macquarie Bank. In those organisations, Salvation Army and so on, there's been some international experience, and along the way I've ensured that my education has been up. Got an MBA, did an International Business Masters. I finished off that doing a research dissertation about IT strategy, and I'm currently studying strategic foresight. Also IT, there's ITIL about how do you make sure operations are working fine, MCSC, Prince 2 is about projects and TOGAF is about architecture. A member of Australian Computer Society, Australian Institute of Company Directors and the Australian Association of Professional Futurists. You could say that I'm a registered futurist as well. So what is culture? And what is strategy? Culture is symbols. It's how we speak, it's how we behave, it's how we react to each other. Families have culture. Organisations have a culture. Nations. In essence, you could say that it's how we do things around here. Culture is how we do things around here. And what's strategy? Well, I could talk to you about positioning, the school of positioning strategy of, yes, let's get Porter's 5 forces and have them all right. Or I could talk to you about emergent strategy or adaptive strategy or different schools. But really when it comes down to it, strategy is about how do we move into tomorrow? How do we move into tomorrow? So here on the one hand, you've got the culture of how we do things around here, and the second is how do we move into tomorrow? And how do we get these twin forces, if you will, at the one table? Now, in the context of culture, in the context of strategy, these two things which are swirling around, it's in the context of people, it's in the context of organisations in our case. And people bring to the table different motivations, different intelligences. They bring to the table different styles of leadership that they prefer to work for or bring to the table themselves as leaders. And then it's done in the context of the firm. So motivations. You could ascribe to Herzberg's theory of motivation, where theory X and theory Y, and theory X is where just everybody just needs to do as they're told and just shut up because I'm the boss and that's it, because you're fundamentally lazy. Or you could ascribe to, theory Y, that, these are good people, they've got their own brain, they can do good things. Another thing that we bring to the table is intelligences. Some people are really good at social skills, at talking. Others are good with spatial skills. Others are good at analysing and logic. Everybody brings different things to the table. And then another area is leadership. What do you ascribe? What school, what pattern of leadership do you prefer? Is it autocratic leadership? Is it bureaucratic, charismatic? Servant leadership? And all of this is done in the context of a firm. Yes, an aged care centre is a firm. Yes, the organisations that support aged care centres, they are also firms. And the theory of the firm is this. Here are the resources of the firm at the disposal of the stakeholders, of the owners over these resources. And it's the view of the owners of those resources, how those resources are managed. So here we have culture and strategy, two definitions. Then we have, in the context, here's these intelligences and our leadership styles and motivations and so on. So let's move from these foundations to some things which I've actually been involved with. I was involved with a government body for a number of years. And there was this bad apple. You could say politically incorrect inside the workplace and also outside of the workplace. And there was a disconnect. Things just weren't working right. So what the management did, they brought in an outside change person, and this person became a permanent member of the staff, and they probably lasted about 12, 18 months because of the job they were doing. And as this person came in, the symbols started changing. There were different posters up and around the place. There were different words being used in management meetings. And in the end, there was some tipping points, and where people started to be drawn away from this bad apple, and things changed, and it became a much more pleasant workplace to be at. Second case study there, a not-for-profit. And here were the people that were doing their best. They were passionate about their work. They were intelligent. They were engaged. They were doing their stuff. But they were getting hurt. They were getting hurt emotionally. They were getting hurt physically. And the management was seeing and watching this happen. So what they did is, okay, let's change the systems. Let's change behaviours. So they put in different IT systems. They put in different management systems, and things improved. The third there is another not-for-profit. And again, the people on the ground, they were passionate. They were doing the right things. They were kicking goals. But management was disconnected. They didn't care. They were, in essence, because they were being laissez-faire and even against what was happening, the passion and the energy of the organisation was missing out. It was not being fully realised. So what happened there was management came to realise that, hey, we need to be aligned with what's happening. And voila, their audits were exceeded, all of their regulatory, all the stuff which they had to do, and going beyond, things just improved out of sight. Risks, the whole audit stuff, everything was most improved. Then there was this government body. Things were going along smoothly and fine, but there was change happening on the outside, much like what is happening in aged care. Stuff was happening on the outside. And management lifted up their eyes and looked around and said, aha, we need to change. And management did change, and they responded to the external forces. So what's some lessons learned regarding culture and strategy, regarding these case studies? The first is, it was leadership that made the difference with the bad apple. Leadership was saying, okay, we're going to make some changes, but it wasn't in a authoritarian type sense. It was, no, these things are wrong, we're going to gently move through, but this is how we're going to change. And people were brought along. No point in being a leader if people don't follow. When the systems change, with the not-for-profit, yes, and then they took their leadership and changed and made sure culture and strategy were talking together, we're both on the same page. The lessons learnt from that forward thinking with that other not-for-profit, management said, we are wrong. Management said, we have been doing things the wrong way. We need to get behind our people that are doing the right things. And that last one there, the government body was responsive. The leaders, the managers, those at the top were responsive to the outside pressures. I want to leave you with this thought. There's another few slides here to go, but the point that I'm saying, to put culture and strategy at the table together, the way to get culture and strategy in sync, moving forward, is leadership. We can all read that there. Leadership is the discipline of deliberately exerting special influence within a group to move it toward goals of beneficial permanence that fulfil the group's real needs. Leadership doesn't have to be at an organisational level. It can just be a person within a group. It can be your own self. But let's stick with an organisation. And you as a leader, do you know the group's real needs? Do you know what the group really needs and really needs to do? Do you know what the goals of beneficial permanence are? That speaks of legacy. That organisation will outlive you. So what are you going to be leaving behind? Is the change that you are making of beneficial permanence? And there's that phrase, exerting special influence. In today's culture, in today's society, it's not lording over people. It's saying, hey, follow me, I'm a leader. And it's exerting that, getting alongside, like we heard this morning with other speakers. Just that, once a month, 30 minutes, like Tim was saying. How do you exert special influence? Here's a question for you. Are you worthy of being followed? Are you setting the right example? Are you being the leader that you need to be? And then that last phrase, leadership is the discipline of deliberately exerting. It is a discipline. We heard and I forget the gentleman's name here this morning, the CEO that had all those fires and all the stuff. It was a disciplined act. No, this is the direction that we need to go. I need to support my people. I need to have right judgment. But it was a discipline. Leadership is the discipline of deliberately exerting special influence within a group to move it toward goals of beneficial permanence that fulfil the group's real needs. So what's the application of all this? It's all very, very well to, okay, here's culture and here's strategy and yeah, here's some definitions and yeah, we know about motivation and so how does it apply? What are the changes when you go back perhaps Wednesday afternoon or Thursday? What are the changes that are being faced by all of us in aged care? There's funding changes. Different demands on the system, on you, on others. Changes in stakeholders and their expectations and how they view. And then, aged care doesn't operate in isolation. It operates in an environment. And what I see more and more is there's more collaboration. More people getting together. You know, Facebook is a collaboration tool. Kickstarter is a collaboration tool. Twitter. Then also, transparency. Have a think about ICAC. People are wanting transparency, they're wanting honesty from those in positions of power. Think about what's happening with the Royal Commission into child matters, children's matters. Institutions and places that look after the vulnerable and the weak, people want greater transparency. And that's a trend that's happening outside. Innovation, we've heard a lot about that too today. Rate of change. If you think change now, and I'm putting my futurist hat on, if you think change is quickly, the rate of change is speeding up. It's almost like that saying, you ain't seen nothing yet. Because as more people know stuff, then more people know more people that know stuff, and just things accelerate. And then the other thing which is happening is the organisation that you're a part of, is that an attractive place to work? People are wanting to work for an attractive workplace. You know, I know of one lady who refused to join a multinational company because they didn't have, and it was an excellent wage, but they didn't have a corporate social responsibility policy because that was in tune with her beliefs. So here's my last slide, and just a couple of minutes to go through this. So here we have culture and strategy, and we've got our definitions and all that sort of stuff. And we've seen some case studies, and we see all this change happening. We see all these pressures and all the things that are happening. How do we get through it? The first thing is, can you think in systems thinking? Can you think of, here are all these different balls, here are all these different things, or here's all this juggling that we're doing, and here's all these different things. But then not only all these things are juggling, here are all these interactions between all these things. And here's this information flow here, and if I change this here, it'll change over there, and it'll impact on that. Can you think? Can you lift your thinking and think in systems? And the second point, the second step in making your way through is, what is the image that you have of the future? Is it go through a discussion amongst yourselves, your leadership team or others, however, what is a metaphor of that organisation that you work for? When it comes down to it, is it an elephant? Yep, we just see ourselves in the future, just this great big hulking thing just barging through. Or do you see, is the image of, okay, our organisation and where our image of the future is a nice restful tree? Is it an Hawaiian beach? Or is it a centre of excellence? What is the image of the future that you have? And to get there, you can do three things. It's called a visioning exercise. One is, what does success look like? Answer that question. Then the second thing is, what are your core values? And then discuss who are the actual stakeholders and how are we actually serving those stakeholders. And then the third step to make your way through this, all this stuff that's happening, is the futures triangle. Futures triangle answers three questions. What is the weight of the past? What is the push of the present? And what is the pull of the future? So to get to that image of the future, ask yourselves, what is the weight of the past? What's holding us back? What is preventing us either from moving forward, or what are the responsibilities that we do have? Second question is, what's pushing us forward? What's the push of the present? What's actually pushing us, forcing us to change? What are the drivers of change? And the last question is the futures triangle is, what's the pull of the future? What is attractive about the future? What is attractive about your future state? And as you start to discuss, and as you start to question and have open discussions about each of these things, some answers, some further questions will fall out, and then you could perhaps put them into a framework for change, a balanced scorecard, if you will, and starting to answer the questions of, okay, what do I do for growth? What do I do for learning and development? What do I do for stakeholders, service? And what do I do around the finance? One framework that you could use to move forward. So there we have it. Culture and strategy. From where I sit, it requires leadership to have those brought together so that you can move forward to a successful future. And then there's this process, this 4-step process. What's your thinking like? And looking at the future, going through a series of questions about the future, and then coming up with a balanced scorecard, some sort of framework for change, and that would be your strategic plan. I want to thank you for being here this afternoon. I've been Paul Terry, still am Paul Terry. We've got Carla and Khan coming on a bit later on. I run my own management consultancy, Delium Advisory. There's all my online presence there. Does anybody have any questions as we close? This really has just been here's some thoughts. You might agree with me, you might disagree with me. That's quite fun. Thank you very much. Thanks.
Thanks, Paul. I really like the idea of the futures triangle, pulling us back, pushing us forward and pulling us into the future. Our second speaker, Carla Beheron, will encourage us to reflect